Hey everyone, this is Pallavi and today I'm going to show the 19th game of the book Chess the Art of Logical Thinking by Neil MacDonald. This game was played between Gelfand and Kramnik in Berlin in 1996 and the opening played was Slav Defence. The principles followed in the game emphasize the importance of balance between development, peace activity, tactics and strategy in a game of chess. So without further ado, let's start. Now white started with d4, controlling the center. d5, black also challenging the center. c4, white is trying to get the pawn on d5. c6, Kramnik decides to stand his ground on d5 by adopting the Slav defense. Knight c3, white develops the knight now that it doesn't block his c pawn as a further benefit of c4. He has the option of queen b3 to put pressure on d5 or possibly b7 once black has developed queen's bishop. Now black played knight f6, develops towards the center and helps bolster d5. Knight f3, white also developed towards the center. e6. Here, however, there is a penalty if black elects to develop with bishop f5, as c takes d5, c takes d5, queen b3 would cause him some anxiety over the b7 square. It is a pity to him in the bishop on c8, but black is eager to develop his king side. So black played e6, now white played e3. White also decides it is best to shut in queen's bishop and make way for the f1 bishop. Knight b d7. Having been deprived of its best square on c6, the knight has to make do with the only other center square available to it. Queen c2. White plans to execute an intriguing kingside pawn advance, which prompts the queen to vacate its position to enable queenside castling. This maneuver is essential because white's king on the king side would be vulnerable and obstructive to the intended plan. The queen opts for c2, gaining control over the e4 square, thereby impeding black's gaining control over black's ability to initiate central counterplay anchored on e4. Bishop d6. He keeps a watch on the dark squares on c5 and e5, which aren't defended by the little triangle of pawns. Now white played an interesting move, g4. White plans to play g5 to dislodge the central knight, followed by e4 to disrupt black's coordination and gain an advantage in the center. This tactical sequence begins with knight takes g4, then rook g1, forcing the knight to retreat and setting the stage for a rook invasion with rook takes g7, which threatens the black king. So after g4, black played an interesting move, bishop to b4. Kramnik appears to disregard the guideline of not moving a piece twice in the opening, favoring b4 over d6 in a single move. This decision is driven by white's irreversible commitment with g4, which leaves the white king side permanently vulnerable and unsuitable for king safety. Had black played bishop b4 one move earlier when the pawn was on g2, white could have chosen a quieter move with bishop e2 and then castle on the king side, followed by b3 and bishop to b2. Eventually, the bishop on b4 would have been compelled to return to d6, costing time, or capture the knight, giving white an advantage with two bishops and better control of dark squares. Thus, the move to b4 only becomes effective after white commits to g4. In the brief half move since bishop d6, the situation has changed significantly. Now black aims to neutralize the g4 to g5 advance by eliminating the knight on c3, allowing black knight to remain a central presence with e4. If black succeeds, white's g4 would appear as an unnecessary weakening of the king side. So after bishop b4, white played bishop d2. White breaks the pin on the knight and clears the way for a queenside castle. If instead g5 instead of bishop to d2, then black can play knight e4, intending queen a5 would give black annoying pressure on c3. Now black played queen e7. Kramnik's approach is methodical as he safeguards the bishop on b4. This strategy avoids a forced exchange on c3, which would happen after b6. Then after queen a4, threatening c6, followed by, let's get with the moves, b6, queen a4, then bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3. So black played queen e7. Now white played a3. White aims to exchange pieces on c3, but Kramnik believes that g5 is a better way to achieve it. After bishop takes e3, so bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3, knight e4, bishop d3, the game is balanced. It's essential to note that any pawn move on the queen side, even seemingly minor ones like a3, weakens the future safety of the white's king position. So after a3, now black played bishop takes c3. It's unpleasant to part with such a fine bishop, but its value is outweighed by the urgency of winning e4 for the knight. White captured, bishop takes c3. Now black played b6, a good move. Kramnik prepares to develop his own bishop and at the same time readies himself to answer bishop b4 with c5, shutting out the white bishop. White played bishop d3. White develops while being unwilling to give up control of the e4 square, especially after c takes d5 and then e takes d5. Black played another good move, bishop a6. A more active square for the bishop than b7 as it immediately attacks c4, queen a4. An awkward way to defend the c4, but Gelfand is still desperate to avoid giving black's knight access to a wonderful center post on e4 after c takes d5. Then bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, e takes d5. If that happened, then the whole point of white's strategy of g4 would have failed. So white played queen a4, black captured, d takes c4, and then white captured, queen takes a6. Black has to capture the bishop right now with the pawn, and then white recaptured. But white wasn't obligated to make this recapture. Kramnik proposes that a better choice for white might have been to dive into uncertain territory with queen b7. In this line, if black goes with castle, then knight e5, queen e8, breaking the pin on the knight on d7, and then knight takes d3, rook c8, followed by queen takes a7, knight takes g4, create a complex and unclear situation, although white faces challenge of determining a safe location for their king. So here white played queen takes d3, and now black played castle. Black finishes developing, securing their king completely. White's attempts to launch a pawn attack on can be effectively countered with actions in the center. g5. Despite his rather unsuccessful opening, it is some consolation to white that he has kept the black knight out of the e4 square. Black played knight d5. At times, the best move emerges by eliminating all other options. The knight is forced to move, and neither h5 nor e8 seem appealing. h5 would sideline it, and e8 would be passive and obstructive to its own rooks. Therefore, the knight confidently heads to d5. Bishop d2. With this quiet retreat, Gelfand prepares to gain space with e4, allowing his opponent to solve the problem of his harassed knight with knight takes c3. So unfortunately for him, Kramnik finds a powerful preventive measure, f5, because if now g takes f6, then queen takes f6 is played, white encounters problems along the f file. Consequently, black has safeguarded the knight on d5 from being forced out by e4. This establishes it as unquestionably the most valuable minor piece on the board. Knights thrive when positioned in strong central squares where they are safe from pawn attacks and not easily traded off. So after f5, now white played queenside castle. The white king cannot remain permanently in the center as black is going to open lines with c5, etc. Castling queenside appears the lesser evil, but the king will prove to be far from safe. Now black played c5, a good move. Following a calm start where he addressed white's possible threats, Kramnik now shifts to an offensive strategy. His main focus is on creating openings on the queen side to target the white king. King b1. The king opts to swiftly move away from the c file, aiming to prevent exposure and free up the c1 square for the rook. b5, another good move. The pawn on a3 provides black with a hook on which he can latch his queenside advance with b4. Perhaps after the preparatory moves like c4, a5. Now white played queen takes b5. Hence, white is compelled to remove the advancing pawn before it gets to b4. However, creating openings on the queen side won't offer much comfort to a king positioned on b1. Now black played rook a b8. Now the b file becomes the perfect channel of attack for the black rooks. Queen a5. The queen must remain active on the queen side because after queen e2, then c takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes a3 will be disastrous for white. So queen a5, then rook b3. The rook is delighted to be stationed on a safe square in enemy territory that cannot be easily attacked by pawn or piece. Here it has maximum attacking potential and little defensive frailty. King a2. With white's pieces failing to support him, the white king attempts to remove the rook itself. Nevertheless, it becomes evident that the king will be pursued rather than the pursuer on a2. Therefore, it would have been wiser for white to play king a1, offering better prospects for a successful defense. Now black played rook fb8. The rook is immediately defended with the catastrophic threat of rook takes b2 check. White played rook b1 protecting b2. Black played e5. The black rooks are well positioned, but effective attack plans often require the queen's involvement. Consequently, Kramnik makes room for his most potent piece by freeing up the e6 square, which eliminates the sense of safety for the white king on a2, simultaneously dismantling the white king on the white center pawns will enhance the mobility of the black knights. Rook hc1. If d takes c5, then knight takes c5. The white queen suddenly finds herself in danger of being trapped by rook 3b5. Meanwhile, if d takes e5, then knight takes e5, knight takes e5, queen takes e5, and the b2 square is attacked third time. So rook hc1. Now black played queen e6. Now the threats include rook 3b5 when the white queen dare not move, because if let's say queen takes a7 check, then knight c3 double discovered check, and when king goes to a1, queen a2, it's a checkmate with the support of the knight. So after queen e6, white had to play king a1, and then black captured, he takes d4. Not only is the white king in peril, but his center is crumbling away. Therefore, desperate remedies are called for. Rook takes c5. Then, after rook takes c5, here white seeks relief from mounting pressure by sacrificing the exchange, a tactic that could have been effective had Kramnik not been so tactically astute. Nevertheless, white was already facing difficulties, and move like e takes d4 would result in losing the knight to rook takes f3. So white captured rook takes c5, and now black captured the rook, white captured the knight back. Then black played another good move, knight c3. Before making this move, black had to foresee the checkmate conclusion. You can't you can't depend on general principles when you have 3 pieces under attack. Knight takes d4. Now black played an excellent move, rook takes b2. Could you have spotted this move in the game? In reality, it's not too challenging to compute. The key is to allow yourself to consider different impossible or absurd sacrifices until you discover one that is effective. Rook takes b2. There is no choice but to accept the rook, as the a2 square must be defended, because if knight takes e6 instead, black has a choice of mate on a2 or b1. So here, after rook takes b2, then queen a2 check. The white rook is deflected on a2, allowing mate. After rook takes a2, then rook b1. A brilliant finish, but it wasn't magic. It was the logical culmination of black's pressure along the b file. Some key principles and lessons learned from the game. Effective piece development is essential. Pawn structure significantly impacts gameplay. Safeguarding the king's safety is paramount. Controlling open files is a strategic advantage. Tactical awareness and precise calculations are crucial. Coordinated piece play is powerful. Timely tactical sacrifices can be game-changing. Exploiting opponent weaknesses is a winning strategy, and adapting your strategy as the game evolves is key. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something from this game as well. Please like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel to show some support. Thank you. See you in the next video. Bye.